Hey folks, I'm Chris Huntingford, otherwise known as the Tattooed CRM Guy on Twitter. So my friend Donna has issued me with a little bit of a challenge, and it's how to articulate the value of the Power Platform in a solution build in under 45 minutes. Now, please note it didn't say application. We're building a whole solution here with loads of different bits and pieces whirling around. Right, so I thought we could use loads of different data sets. I'm going to use UFO sightings, so we could use boring old prospects and things like that, but we're going to make this a bit more fun. So if I put myself in the shoes of the organization managing these UFO sightings, one of the things they need to do is be able to bring in those UFO sightings from various sources, like external sources or people on the road, and then also manage them through to a progressive state of completeness. Now, here's the thing. Unfortunately, we don't know the exact process, but we can sort of guide the business into actually building that process out into completion. The other thing that's really key is being able to intelligently analyze the data to actually really figure out if there's extraterrestrial life out there. So we're going to help them do it. How are we going to do that, and what products are we going to use? First things first, because my data lives in Excel and it's not secure, I need a secure, scalable data source that'll help me manage this really sensitive UFO data. The next thing, we're going to build a model-driven application on top of that that's going to help us manage the actual processing of this data through each step. We're going to run it through some AI Builder, so this is just going to be more of a demo than anything else to show you how some of the AI Builder functionality works. We're going to stick some Forms Pro on over the top of it and then leverage Power Automate to map those fields. Now, yes, I know you can install Forms Pro directly into the Common Data Service. This is a slightly older version, so we will be using Flow. Finally, we'll build ourselves a Canvas app to actually bring the data in while I'm on the road. So one of those people on the road with my mobile device will run around and start bringing the data in from from our third parties to track into our centralized data store. And very much last but not least, we will be using Power BI to actually analyze that information brought in from all of these amazing data stores. So this will give us our full solution. And I literally have 40 minutes to do this. Okay, so let's see if this can be done, right? First things first, we're going to start out in our trial environment, okay? And you can see I've got some entities over here. I'm not building this within a solution. I'm being a bit naughty. We're going to use dataflows to bring in our UFO sightings. So what we'll do is we'll create a new data flow. This is going to be rigged up to Excel, and we'll select the right Excel file with all of our different UFO sightings information. So let's go browse OneDrive. You can see I've got 10,000 UFO sightings over there. We're going to select that one and hit open. We're going to hit next. And essentially what this is going to do is push us into Power Query, where we can actually start looking at transforming the data. Now this is very basic data transformation. I'm going to select to use my first row as headers. A couple of other really basic data transformational rules in here is the unique ID I'm going to be changing to text. And the reason for that is I know the Common Data Service has got a unique ID field in it that'll actually create numbers that are essentially can be built out in whatever structure you'd like with prefixes and things like that, which is pretty cool. Next thing, you can see that it's decided that that's a date field, that's a Boolean field. We changed the Latin long to text. The reason is because at the moment when you try and import data through data flows, it doesn't recognize negative values in decimal numbers. So what we'll do is we'll say text. This will definitely be fixed in the near future. Awesome, very basic information. We're going to select next over there. We're going to load this to a brand spanking new entity, right? So we're going to say UFO. That's going to be the entity name. We're going to delete the rows that no longer exist in the query so it doesn't iterate through it at all. And then we're going to select unique ID as our primary field name. Now at the bottom, the reason I'm getting that error is because this is a multi-line text field. We need it to be a text field. And we're going to change all these other fields to text. Now at the moment, this doesn't particularly support lookups or option sets. So this may not be the most business appropriate way to bring in this information. One thing I'm also doing right now is I'm leaving comments as multi-line text because I know that those values are more than 100 characters, whereas text won't be. What I'm going to do is hit next, and this is typically where I'll go get some tea, and we'll let this data import very quickly. Hopefully my time doesn't get taken up too much here. Right, okay, so that's all good, right? That's loaded up. That makes me very happy. You can see my data flow is being saved over there, and when I go take a look at my data, and I look for UFO, there we go. Click on UFO, Let's see. Awesome. Here's all my data. Fantastic. And that's all the information that you would have seen if you had opened up the Excel file. You'll be able to see all of it in here, right? So that's my data in there. Fantastic. I no need to any longer worry about Excel. And we haven't knocked off too much time, which is really, really good. Okay, so what I've done, if I shoot back to my little diagram, is I brought my data in. So we've done that, and we've got our UFO data. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set ourselves up for success. So we've got to create some views. Now, here's the thing. If I'd like to, I can create and add other fields to my list. So if I'd like to associate this to a person, in the Common Data Service, what's really cool is we've got a contact record lookup already. So if you've got a contacts over there, I can actually add my own contact record lookup. So if I had any data that would have shown over there, we're just going to put that in for good measure, right? So if we go back to our entities and we go to UFO, nice and easy and searchable, we're going to add in a field called contact. If they can give us their contact information, we're not telling them they have to. I'd want to remain super, super, super anonymous. So there's my lookup over there, ABC, contact or power. This is a relationship, folks. So I'm relating my Common Data Service to an entity, which is my little container that stores data and fields and views and all those awesome things, to another entity. So if you look at it like Back to the Future with Marty McFly and his parents, if Marty McFly's parents died, he would die, and that's the thing called referential integrity. So we've got that already available directly to us here. Next thing I want to do is I want to create some views. So it's already given me some out-the-box views, which I'm pretty psyched about. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit my standard active UFO views. Now, one of the things that's really important to us is that we need to immediately be able to see the city. Okay. We also want to make sure that they're created on the actual date, the physical date the record was created on is also there. We also want to see the shape. That's really important to us because the shape is going to determine the craziness of the UFO. So if it's a fireball shape, you know it's going to be awesome, right? We don't necessarily, we need the duration because some people see UFOs for a very long time. We'll stick in the contacts over there just for good measure. We won't have any data in that link because we didn't import any. So any new data will have the contacts over there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have our resolution status, which is a text field. We're going to save and publish that right now. These are the bits that I'm creating so that when I build my apps, my information is available in a way that I want to be able to consume it and see it. Awesomeness, right? So we've got a view. The next thing we're going to want to create is, that's one way of viewing data, but another really good way of viewing data is through charts. Now, this is not Power BI. These are built-in charts within the Common Data Service in our model-driven app. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one or two charts just to help us understand data. Now, I've had friends make the joke with me. Friends don't let friends build pie charts, but I've got to be honest. I don't mind a good pie chart here and there. Let's give this a second to load. Right, so what we're going to do is we've got our view called active UFOs. The first thing we're going to want to select is we're going to want to select the unique ID because that's what we're going to aggregate by. And we want to see it via the shape. You can see it's already pulled up a bar chart. Now, just for good measure, we're going to stick that in a pie chart. It's just much easier to consume. And we're going to say UFOs by shape, UFOs by shape. The next one we're going to want to see is we're going to want to potentially see by country. That's a really great one to help us understand. So we're going to add another chart. We're going to select once again the unique ID because that's what's going to count. And we're going to say over here, country. There's only a few countries. Wow, already in the US. Oh, look at that. Very reasonable in Germany, but there's something crazy going on in the US. I'm going to say UFOs. And what actually charts help you do is make up the work area, like the dashboard, where people are going to log in every morning and try and get an aggregate of the information. Finally, the last one we're going to do is we're going to once again select unique ID, and we're going to select over here, we're going to select we'll go for substatus over there. So some of them are pending, some of them are active, and some of them are resolved, and we're going to select a different type of chart. I'm going to select bar. Great. So UFOs. substatus. Awesome. So we've now done a view, we've done a chart, now we've got different ways to view information. So this is a list, essentially, and this is a more graphical view. The last thing we're going to do is our forms. Now, the forms are the way in which you interact with information. So where users input information within the model-driven app and where they consume or view information. Right. Now, I've just opened up the incorrect version of the form. We need to make sure we open up the main form over there. And this is our form editor. What's really cool about the form editor is it's pretty drag and drop, right? So you can just pick up fields. You can zoom in if you're super blind like me, or bam. Let's keep it over there for now. So the unique ID is fantastic. We're going to do something to that field shortly. We want to make sure we get the city. We definitely need comments. That's very important to us, right? We're going to just add in the contacts in case people want to link this up to another record. We'll stick in the country over there as well. Is it a UFO or not? Sure, we definitely want that information over there. Latin long, absolutely. Stick those guys in over there. We definitely want the shape. That's super important for us as well. Remember that. Resolution status, absolutely. We'll take our substatus over there. And what we're also going to do is make sure we can split this form up into a way that it makes a bit more sense, right? So you can add different components to the form. So if I wanted to, I could add in tabs and columns. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a section, which is kind of like a bit that lives underneath this. The section we're going to call location information. It's all the locational information fields, right? So all I do is I simply drag and drop those fields from the top over there just into the section over here, and it kind of splits the way the form looks, which I think is really, really cool. Excellent. We're ready to rock and roll. Okay, let's publish this form. Now, when you publish it, it's basically a thing that like writes back. It says, this is the stuff that we've done, and we're going to basically save it back to the database, data set. Finally, last but not least, on our planning section over here, I mentioned that there was a thing called auto number. So if you take a look, I've got unique ID, and this is our primary field. I can switch that out to auto number, and it'll create an incremental number. We're going to have a prefix of UFO, so every field it creates, it's going to start with that. And we're going to start with 1,200, just in case. And it actually gives you a little preview of what it's going to look like, which is really awesome. It helps us search for stuff and make it a bit more unique in our database. So basically what we've done is in this scenario, we've created all these little bits and pieces over here, except for the dashboards, which we're going to start with next. The next part we're going to look at is our model-driven application. So what do our mid-office users use to interact with this data? So if I go to applications, and I go to the very top and I say model-driven app. Now the model-driven app looks very different to the Canvas app. So we're going to call this UFO Sighting Management. Excellent. So this is going to basically be our line of business solution that helps us manage UFOs. So typically only mid-office people are going to use this. You can see that this is essentially what I would call my app designer. I don't have any entities or any records added in here. So what I'm going to do is go to Site Editor. We're going to rebrand this to UFO Sighting Management. We'll call this UFOs. And what I can do is I can basically select the entities that I'd like to interact with. So essentially here, we know we have an entity called UFOs. The other thing that we had, which we briefly spoke about, was contacts. So potentially people that are associated to a UFO sighting. So if I go to contact over there, those are the two entities I'll be leveraging when I'm using my UFO app, and you can see that's added them over there. Now, what's quite cool is that my forms are all accessible directly from here. So same with my UFO sightings. Remember that form we edited? We can also edit it directly from here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to build out two things for our app. The first thing we're going to build is a dashboard. Now, we don't want all of those dashboards because not all of them are relevant to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand spanking new classic dashboard. Remember those charts we created? We're going to add those to this dashboard over here. So we're going to call this UFO Sighting Management. The first chart we're going to add, we're going to search for the entity UFO over there. And you can see it's already picked up one of them, so let's stick that in there. The second one we're going to add UFO once again. And I'm going to select by shape. Fantastic. And the third one we're going to select is UFO. And we're going to make sure that we're selecting that by substatus. You can also add lists to dashboards. So if I want to, I can add a list of my active UFO sightings based on that view, and this then dashboard becomes available to my users. We're going to select that only one over there because we don't want to overload our application with information. You can see my single dashboard's been selected there. And what we're going to do is go back to us. We need to save. Absolutely, you must save. Okay, we're going to go back to our sitemap, and we're going to drag and drop a group at the very top here. So let's go over there. We'll drag and drop a group. Oops, sorry. Over there, and we're going to call this dashboards, and the sub area we're going to drop in there is going to be a sub area of type dashboard. We can select the dashboard we'd like to show in the sub area. So obviously we're going to be selecting UFO sighting management, and we're going to save this. We're going to publish it, and we're going to save and close. Now, I did say that I was going to do something else here. We're going to build in our business process flow to take our UFO sightings through a process. So first of all, once again, we're going to deselect that. We're going to create new, and we're going to call this UFO Sighting Management. Excellent. The entity is going to be for UFOs over there. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit OK. Now, this is going to take me to the process design, and we can actually build out the steps to manage a UFO sighting. We're going to keep this very basic, and we're going to keep it to 3 steps. The first step is going to be called UFO info, capture UFO info. And you can actually have subcomponents or data steps within this actual process to tell you what to capture first. So in this scenario, the first thing we want to know is, well, what city is this in? The second thing we want to know is we want to know the comments. Those are the most 2 important things that I need. Right, the next step we're going to call it review sighting. Epic. Save. And inside that over there, we're going to need to make sure that we've got our country. Some very key pieces of information that we need. We're not going to add another stage. We're going to add and drag and drop another data step. And we're also going to make sure that we have the date posted. Some very key things. And finally, we're going to go resolve. Now, there's some key pieces of information for us around resolving a sighting. First of all, the thing that we need to know is, number 1, what is the actual substatus of this? Number 2, we really want to know the duration, because that's really key. And thirdly, the last thing we want to know before we actually conclude is that was this a UFO or was this an IFO? I'm going to save this process over here. We're going to activate it. Excellent. Once we've done that, we'll go directly back into the model-driven application. So I can simply save and close that. Now, you'll see my UFO sighting status available over there. Great. Now, what's fantastic is you may see some other parts of some other entities that have been added in here. If you know you don't need them, feel free to remove them. I'm going to keep these ones, right? So let's save this. We're going to publish this app. This is my first model-driven app, and we're going to run this right now. This is what it's going to look like for your users. When they log on, they could very quickly go to their dashboards and get some insight into what's going on from all the UFO sightings. They can click on the UFOs. They can show some charts and actually drill into the information. So if we go to, let's go to Great Britain and see what's going on in there. You can see all the sightings for Great Britain, right? You can very easily capture a new UFO sighting. So we can go the sky. You can see it's automatically applied that business process flow, so you can actually follow the process here. So what we're going to do is we're going to save that real quick and progress through actually capturing this information. As I select my country and my date posted, it may be today, but the date posted might have been yesterday. I can move out and actually continue capturing this information. This was definitely 1,200 milliseconds. And is it an IFO? Well, we're not sure, so I'm going to say finish. Now, there might be some other core pieces of information on the form that you need to fill in, like, well, let's call this fireball. So that's a shape that they could have put in there. Now, sometimes we want to be able to dictate the shape based on certain other bits of information. We could potentially do that using Flow or AI Builder. But what we've done so far, very quickly, is we built out our common data service directly from a data table. We've created a model-driven application, and we've created the actual process to capture the details, right? Now, while that's going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that model-driven application and show you something quite cool. Inside the solution, we've got a thing called AI Builder, and you can actually generate models. Oh dear, let's just get rid of that. You can actually generate models that help you interact with the data. So you've got things like object detection and all sorts of great stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to select the predictive model. We're going to call this UFO or not. And this is going to basically try and predict if something's a UFO or not a UFO. We're going to go to create. And what this actually lets you do is look at various entities within the common data service and try and understand information that would affect whether this is a UFO or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we pick UFO over there. And the field that we want to check on is IFO, UFO, IFO. Excellent. We're going to go next. And what this will do is it'll actually start looking at various elements of the data to try and understand what affects this being a UFO or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to progress through. You can actually drill in and see the types of information that would dictate that. It doesn't use system fields. It's only going to use the non-system fields. Yep, I'm not too worried about focusing the model with other filters. And let's train this model to try and figure out if this is going to be a UFO or not. While that's running in the background, what we're going to do is we're going to go to make.powerapps.com. Oopsie, can't spell. And we can always just go back and check. There we go. So you can see it's training over there. While that's busy, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our next part, which is Forms Pro. So we've got information directly from a basic manual data source. We want to create it from a non-manual data source. So if we go to Forms over there, we want our external people to be able to fill in this information. So what we're going to do is create a brand spanking new form. We're going to call this UFO Sighting. You can quite easily give it some artwork, so you can stick it for Bing or whatever. What we can do is just go to plug over there. We'll go to artwork and we'll select something pretty cool to make sure that this looks awesome at every level. Right. We're going to add a new field and we're going to say choice. Whoopsie, that's not what I want. You can quite easily remove this. So we're going to add a new field. We're going to select text and we're going to say city. Great. And it's a very short one. So the next one we're going to add in is text and we're going to say country. And the next one we're going to add in and we're going to call this comments. Fantastic. Great. And there's some very basic information stored directly over here that we can bring in externally. Now, we may not need all this information. You might want to have something like email. That's totally fine. We're going to keep this very basic for now. What I am going to make sure that I put in here is the fact that when I share this, I want people all over the world to respond. And I also want people to be able to use a QR code. So if they just scan the QR code, they'll be able to bring this information. That sounds very basic, right? But we basically built our first Forms Pro form. Brilliant. So if I save that and carry on, the next thing we want to be able to do is map that Forms Pro information directly into our solution. Now, as I said, I could embed Forms Pro directly into the common data service. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Flow to map this. So we're going to create from blank. We're going to call this when a new response is submitted. So UFO form. Okay. Over there, create. Excellent. And this is going to be able to allow me to select from my list of forms. So remember I captured UFO sighting. That's over there. Excellent. We're going to get the response details directly from that form. There we go. There's the response ID. What I am going to do is just zoom out a little bit so that pop-up doesn't happen again. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a brand spanking new record on the common data service. We're going to select our environment, which is crazily named as Jeff. Yes, don't laugh, it happens. We're going to select our UFO entity. There it is there. And what's going to happen is we're going to populate fields in that entity with the information captured. So the first one we know was comments. The second one we know was city. We also want country. We might not want responders email, but those are the three core things we really need to be able to make sure we've captured our UFO sightings. We can typically generate other parts of information based on, metadata details from the form. If I really wanted to, we could simply test this out. So I could pop into my form over here. We could say UFO sightings, preview, London, UK, I'm so angry with the aliens, and submit. And that'll actually fire off that flow. So when I say test, see that's already been fired. So if I go into this actual flow over here and I drill in, you'll see if I drill into the record that this was a success. If I go into my app, remember we spoke about that model-driven application. If I go into my model-driven application, UFO Sightings Management over there, and I go to UFOs, and I select created on, and we order by that, you can see there's the record it's created. There's London over there. So that was the first one. This is the second one. That's the only detail I've put in, right? And it's already started off and initiated the process. Crazy, right? So we've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things very quickly. The next thing we're going to start talking about is, well, once I've got all that information, how could I potentially start leveraging things like Power BI? Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we want to make sure we can start analyzing this data properly. So the first thing I want to do is say go into Power BI, look for the common data service, and we're going to connect to that instance of the common data service. You can see it's asked me for a URL over there. That's totally fine. All we do is we go into the very top over here and select everything before the word main. We pop back in there and we hit OK. Now what's awesome is that this is going to allow me to sign in and actually leverage my Power BI functionality within that environment. So what we're going to do is just make sure I've got the right username and password. Hopefully that's right. Excellent, connect. Okay, so that's our first bit, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start thinking about dragging information directly from that CDS. Now, remember I said to you that I connected it to that common data service. You can see that all these records over here, all these entities are available to me. What I need to start thinking about doing is how to get that data. So I remember I called it UFO sightings. You can see I've got a thing called CRB22_UFO. This is the out-the-box prefix that you get because I'm building outside of a solution. I'm going to go to transform data, and this is going to link me up to Power Query again, but actually change this information and make it visible to me in a different format. Once again, you want to make sure that you select the right data. So I'm going to first of all say choose columns. And I want to make sure I pick the right information from this list. So I only need city, comments. I don't need contacts in the scenario, country. I need date posted, absolutely, duration. I need IFO. I need Latin long for my map. Relational status would be great, shape, state, substatus, UFO ID. In fact, we don't need UFO ID, we need unique ID. Those are the only fields I need. Now, typically within Power BI, what we're going to do is we're going to give these friendly names. And I don't plan to change that because that's important, especially if you're using natural language query. There we go. So we'll change that to country. Now, normally in a demo, I'd be rushing through this. But because I'm online, I think it's a little bit easier. I don't know if you guys heard as well, the cat was making some strange noises earlier. So I apologize. We're going to say IFO. Give these some friendly names. Lat. We don't need to do any crazy transformational stuff with the data here. And remember, once again, with using Power BI, you can just add and remove stuff directly from there. So status, shape, this is state. And last couple, let's go substatus and fantastic. Ready to rock and roll. What we can do is close and apply this to the data model. Excellent. So that'll take a few seconds. Now, what this is doing is uploading that data into the data model locally, and then we can start editing it and making sure that we can generate some pretty sweet looking reports. Now, one thing I will tell you, I'm not super great at making pretty Power BI reports. It's not because I have no talent, it's mainly because I have no taste. So you may see some strange things over here. First things first, I am very much in the position to put something pretty in the background. So like I said, I just want to make it look a little bit decent. I'm going to stick some artwork in there. We can take one of the cooler pictures, maybe stick, let's say, what looks great over here. Kind of a fan of that one. No, let's pick that one. That one looks really cool. Here we go. And you can actually decide whether it's stretched, whether it's not stretched. So we can go fill. That one doesn't look any good. Easy enough to select another one and just chuck it in there. That one looks a little bit stronger. We'll go fill. Wow, cool. Starting to look great. Also want to save this. So file, save as. I'm just going to chuck this on the desktop. I can call this UFO sighting from now. Right, great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start making this look a little bit pretty. The one thing that we want to do is, I know that we've got Latin long, and a map always looks really awesome on a Power BI report. So we're going to select a map. We're going to go and drag latitude. We're going to drag longitude, and we're going to drag unique ID over the size of the bubbles, right? And actually in the legend, we want to have the shape, because that's going to help tell us the types of UFOs that have landed or made an appearance in certain places. So there we are. That looks pretty good already. Okay. Can always do some make pretty later type stuff. The next thing I want to do is I want to stick in a pie chart. Now, normally I say friends don't let friends make pie charts, but we'll make an exception on this one. We're going to go the legend as the substatus, and we're going to select unique ID as the values. There we are. All right. So now we're starting to make a little bit more sense. A couple of other things I want to do here is I also want to have a list. So let's make sure I select the right one over there. And what I want to do on that list is I want to be able to select the country. Now, this is really key for me because most of my UFO sightings and reporting is done by country. Awesome. So pretty basic. I know this doesn't look brilliant, but we're going to stick with it right now. What I'm also going to do is we're going to chuck on let's pick this one over here, stick a nice little bar graph. We're going to stick shape in over there. There's the z-axis. We're going to chuck in unique ID as the line of values. Whoops. Great. So we can start doing some pretty intense stuff over here. Let's just make this a little bit bigger. Right. Awesome. Okay, and then what we'll do is on shape, we're also going to make sure that we have, see if this works. Nope, it has not been happy. No. Okay, we'll just stick with that one for now. And then finally, the last one we want to do is we want to make sure we have our date. Now, our date is very key. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our date posted as the axis, and we're going to select the count of unique ID. All right, there we go. Wow, look at that. And we're going to try and stick with the year. We don't want dates, year and month, right? And then you'll be able to drill in and drill out of that. If you really want to switch out the themes, you can make it look as cool as you want. I've got this really, really weird obsession with the city park theme, so I'm going to stick with that. We're going to go save, and basically, ooh, it's quite all transparent. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not too fussed about that. What we could potentially do is, if we didn't like that backdrop just on the reports of the wallpaper, you might want to do something like that to make it a little less intrusive. Great. Okay, one last thing we're going to do. There's this really cool tool called Key Influences, which I'll always stick in. Key Influences basically tells you what is affecting the data that you've got in your system. So if I go, I want to analyze all of the different countries. So I'm going to analyze all the different countries, and we're going to check out the countries, and we're going to explain them by shape, right? So let's go, it's going to run analysis. Let's pick the US, right? So it's telling me most of the UFOs landing in the US are the shape of a flash. And that's, so when a shape is a flash, the country is 1.7 times more likely to be compared to all of the values in the shape as the US. If we go to Great Britain, you're going to find a diamond. And you can actually drag and drop other pieces of information in there, and it may or may not come up with the value. There we go. While the status in the UK is more likely to be visitors of another galaxy when compared to all the data. That's crazy, right? So that's already AI in the making. So what we're going to do is we're going to save that up, and we're going to publish it to Power BI. Right, so we're going to publish it to my workspace over there. Fantastic. It's all very exciting. So when I go into my Power BI dashboard, I'll be able to see something that says UFO sighting PBIX, or UFO sighting. Great. So when I close that and I go into Office and I open Power BI, you're going to see something that says Workspaces. Oops, my workspace. And you'll see something over here that says UFO Sightings. Is that the right one? Oh, that's the dashboard. But that's fine. We're actually looking for the reports. Common mistake, friends. It's another version of this. Or is it? Yes, it is. Let's make sure we get the right one so that you can see I'm not speaking rubbish. UFO sighting. Fantastic. So this is the one we want. Is page 1. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to save this up to parts of this up to a dashboard so that you can use this in the common data service. So if I say pin, new dashboard, Chris, UFOs, and then UFOs, it's going to be a dashboard. And I'll be able to see these little widgets on that dashboard a little later, and I can use them in my Canvas app and model-driven application. So you can actually see that this solution is highly integrated. Excellent. Let's make sure we select Chris UFOs 01. Fantastic. Let's just make sure we get all the different widgets. We'll make it like a little 4-panel dashboard, which is quite cool. And we select that one over there. Great. There we go. So we've got all our bits and pieces pinned into our dashboard. Right. Brilliant. That's all very exciting. The next thing we're going to do is, now we've got our Power BI sorted, we want to make sure that we can actually add this to our different applications. Let's close that screen up. Let's make sure we don't have 100 screens open, because I'm very famous for doing that. What we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that we can add dashboards. So if I go over here and I take a look at my dashboards, you can see that if I say new, it only says Dynamics 365. Don't worry about that too much, right? What we're going to do is we're going to go to Advanced Settings. This is just going to be a small thing that I have to do to make sure that I can actually add bits and pieces, add Power BI dashboards to this. When I go reporting, I say yes, and I say okay. Close that up. You never have to look at it again, I promise. And I refresh this page. I can actually add that dashboard to my list. So when I go new, you can see it says Power BI dashboard. Right? All I'm going to do is select from Chris UFOs 01, and now this dashboard becomes available to me directly in my app. Craziness, right? So in actual very short amount of time, folks, we've managed to build out multiple pieces of our puzzle. I still haven't showed you what I'm going to do with that yet. The last little piece that we actually want to build is our Canvas app. Now, the Canvas app is very interesting because now I can get data from the public using my Forms Pro. I can capture data manually internally. What I want to be able to do is use my Canvas app to be able to actually go on the road and get information. Now, the sweet part about this is because I've got data, leveraging the AI within the Power Platform, I'm able to actually I'm able to actually create apps within seconds. So if I go to phone layout over there and I type in UFO, you can see I've got UFOs. This is actually going to create me the shell of an application that's going to allow me to capture my actual details directly around the UFO sightings. So give this a second. There we go. I'm not happy with that theme. It's giving me a shell app. We're going to go red just to make sure it looks a little bit sweeter than normal. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we absolutely save this. So we're going to call this UFO Sightings. Absolutely fantastic. And we're going to go back to our settings. I've got this weird thing about red and stars. So that's what we're doing. Great, save. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my app out a little bit more. So first things first, I need to have a thing called a browse screen to make this look sweet AF. So let's go browse. sorry, I'm not going to call browser, I'm going to call Splash. Now, here's something cool, right? Splash screens in Power Apps often can be a bit of a pain to create. There is a very cool little tool called Canva. That's canva.com. That's where I create these things. I highly recommend you test it out, right? So if I go to artwork and go to animation, I created this awesome little GIF that every time I load up the app, that's what it's going to look like. And it's going to push me through to those screens there. So first things first, I'm actually going to duplicate this screen, and I'm going to call the next screen reports. So I'm going to have my splash screen with my information. Let's stick on an icon over there, and it doesn't really matter what I add in the icon as, because I can just switch that out in the main view. So if I go to my color scheme, I'm going to make that white, nice and easy. Make it a little bit bigger. My design skills aren't super great, but you can see over here, if I really want to, I can just select whichever icon I want. So whatever I type, like file. Well, that doesn't work. Let's pick that one over there. The waffle's really good, right? Make sure on my waffle menu, I'm going to navigate to my browse screen, and I can test that just by pressing Alt. Oops, not that record. If I press Alt and hover over, it should navigate me to my browse screen. One of the things that I'm really careful about those, making sure that I can get back, so we can just stick another icon in there. If you speak to some of the designers like Keith and Manuela, they say keep stuff, like don't make stuff too big. So I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to select EA back. And what that's going to do is that's going to basically navigate me back to my splash screen. Bam. Epic. So if I test this out, just hold Alt. Pow. Awesome. Super happy with that, right? Last but not least, what I want to do is I want to add a button to get back to my reporting screen, because I want to be able to check out some of my reports. So if I scroll down, you'll be able to see some pretty sweet icons that I can use here. So, whoops. Let's go to hamburger. Let's go to hamburger over there. I'm not really too fussed about what that's going to look like. We're going to navigate to my report screen. Right. And in my report screen, what we're going to do is, you can see how easy it is to copy paste stuff. So if I go into my browser screen, just grab that back button over there, chuck back into my report screen, just stick that in. I can easily get back. The really sweet part here, though, is that I'm going to add in my reporting, so charts, Power BI. I can actually leverage that information. So remember, I added in that set of dashboards, those little dashboard widgets. What I can quite easily do, apologize for the noise, quite easily do is just embed those over here. Right, and this just gives us a nice, quick, easy view of what's going on in my solution. Now, I'm a big fan of the map. Oh, cool, awesome. Nice, sweet little application. If I go to my edit screen, I'm just going to pop in there and just make sure I can capture all the right information. You can see I've got some details missing on the form there. So very easily, I'll just go to edit fields, add a field. We're just going to select comments. Fantastic. Great. So now what we've got is we've got a live application. So essentially, we built everything out. And I'm going to shoot back to that AI builder piece very shortly to show you one last thing before we run this entire solution that I've built in less than an hour. Right. So let's close this application up. Let's go to my splash screen. Let's just make sure that this works. So we test that. Great. That goes back. We test that. Great. That loads. Excellent. Always test your apps. Close that. Say leave. Wonderful. We've got our full built application over here. Last but not least, let's just pop into that AI builder functionality to show you something very quickly. If I take a look at what's going on here, this is the model that I've trained, right? And it tells me that the thing that affects whether this is a UFO or not is my resolution status. So if I say to this thing, publish, what it's going to do is it's actually going to create the model in the background. It's going to actually publish the model in the background for me to use in my applications. So I can create alerts and all sorts of things that dictate what's going to happen with the data. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail in this demo. I thought I'd show you a live training of an AI model. But essentially, that data I loaded directly up in there is very easy for me. So all that'll happen is the data that's running inside my solution, right, will generate immediate results and tell me whether this is most likely to be an UFO or not based on these fields that I've got over here. Now that's crazy cool, because now if you think about the fact that you might have campaigns or cases or complaints that are logged within your solution, you can actually start doing this with the AI model. We might revert to this back in an old video, but what I want to do is revert back to my slide real quick. So just to run through what we built. We've imported the data using dataflows in the common data service. We've created views, charts, dashboards, and forms. We created a model-driven application where we were able to expose our views, charts, and forms and dashboards, as well as our data. We created a very quick business process flow, which helps us manage the data from step to step. We then used AI models to actually analyze the data and get to those results. So we know that most UFOs are dictated by the fact that the status is the thing that is key here. We built a forms pro form where external people can log their information. We used Flow to map that information directly into the common data service. You can use the embedded forms pro functionality. We built a Canvas app for all users on the road to actually capture that information. And then finally, we got a Power BI report that analyzes all the detail. If I go back to my solution and actually run this, there we go. Let's go to my application. First things first, I'm on the road. I'm going to be running to chat to a bunch of people about UFO sightings they've seen. You can see here's my application. I can pop in and take a quick view of some of the reports that have taken place. So, okay, great. We can see that there's a number of UFO sightings that are pending, but most of them have happened in the US. If I jump out there and actually go into my application, I can see that there's a list of sightings and I can drill in and grab details. Now, because we're not going to do that in this scenario, we're going to capture a brand spanking new one. I'm going to speak to somebody and say the shape is a diamond. So the duration was 1200 seconds. The city was London. Resolution status is active. And the unique ID encoded will be generated and it will say in the sky. Fantastic. That's the first one. So remember that one was diamonds. That's my first mechanism of getting information. My second mechanism of getting information is through a public form, and you're most welcome to try this out if I go to downloads, which is always very dangerous in a demo, and I double click on this QR code over there. You can quite easily pause the video and scan that QR code and capture the information. I will get it in my system. What we're going to do though is we're going to go to UFO sighting over here. Oops. We're going to open the form, go preview and capture some information. The city we're going to go is London again. We'll say the city is Reading. In the UK, country is UK, and comments, fire in the sky. Great, cool, right. So let's save that up over there. The flow will fire and catch that information directly. If I go into my mid-office model-driven application as somebody that manages UFO sightings every day, I can log into my dashboard and see all the information around the UFO sightings that have been logged, and this information is live. I can quite easily drill into my different UFOs, create it on, and you'll see that there are two records have been created, one for Reading and one for London. This record over here, it's much easier for me to flesh it out because it was captured directly through the Canvas app. So if I can progress that, select the date posted, obviously have a discussion with the person if I've got their email address, and we'll resolve the sighting to closed. And we'll make it, yes, this is an unidentified flying object. Maybe it was a plane. You can use AI Builder to actually bring that information in as well. Finally, if I switch out from there, go to create it on and go to the one in Reading, I can do the exact same and run through the process and resolve these solutions. Once again, when you drill back out, go to dashboards and go into your Power BI functionality. This will allow you to further analyze the data. So if I go to my solution and go open in Power BI, let's click on one of the widgets that might make it a bit easier. And I say open Power BI reports. You'll be able to see I can actually interact with the data directly on the report, directly through the Power Platform solution. So if I select the UK, you can see that only a few sightings have been made here. But if I select the US, oh, wow, look at that, when it eventually loads. Great, fantastic. You can actually see a sliding scale. When I go into my key indicators, you can see that in the UK, most sightings are actually resolved when contact was made. So to finalize this entire discussion, I just want to bring to clarity and bring to light the fact that this Power Platform solution is massively, massively powerful. You can build whatever you'd like, right? It's totally up to you. I've built you something very basic in a matter of minutes, under an hour. I'd love for you guys to try this. The data sets are available. If you would like to get access to the information, please go to AKA.MS/HackAtSpeed. It's AKA.MS/HackAtSpeed. The data sets are there. You're welcome to build these out yourselves. Once again, this is Chris Huntingford. Thank you for listening to me. I wish you the guys the best of luck with the Power Platform, and please give me a shout if you'd like to try anything or have a discussion. Thanks once again, folks. Have a wonderful day.